Welcome to the Ashes into Beauty podcast with your host, Stephanie Marie Laswell, divorce concierge at The Divorce Life. Hello, listeners. Thank you for tuning in with us today. I am excited to have my friend Mary here. She is going to chat with us about a lot of great things about wealth. Mary, thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Well, I've had 13 years of being a female empowerment expert. And when I went through my divorce, it's just, I became a trauma expert, a divorce trauma expert. But because I left behind $1 million life and grabbed my 2 little girls and started over on food stamps, that pain of struggling through what it was like to start over from my ashes moment put this fire in my belly that I was like, you know what, God, I want to learn how to master this game of money. And when I did, because you know what, I couldn't let my children suffer and live in a way that we were designed to be wealthy. You know, we were designed to be funded fully so that we can go out and do the work on this plane, helping other humans on the planet. And so I wanted to make myself an experiment and learn that, teach it forward to my children. And then naturally, as a natural teacher, guide, and mentor to others, now I turned myself into a wealth and legacy architect. I went and got licensed. I went and got educated. And now that's my passion, because there is no reason that women are continuing to play this old record and program of gender roles. I mean, we're going to dive into that because, you know, where we come from matters, but that's not where it ends. We have to be the ones to learn how to break the things that need to be broken so we can rewrite a new pattern for future generations.
Absolutely. I love that. And I really do believe that it starts with women, because most of the time the mom is the one that is carrying 24/7 for the children, right? And that's where we break those cycles. That's where we educate ourselves so that we can educate our children, like you so beautifully said already. That's where I think we do break those chains of poverty.
You know, there's a saying, an old African proverb that I love, and it says, when you teach a woman, you change a nation. So it's time for us to teach women everywhere so we can change the globe.
Yeah. And I know that you and I both share that passion of education. Education is so empowering. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about when clients come to you, what are the ashes that they're bringing to you from their divorce stories?
Yeah. So in the beginning, when I was simply completely focused on trauma transformation, that's different, because now as a wealth and legacy architect, they've walked through that. They've healed. It's been like a year or two after that trauma zone. And now they're looking at their legacy. They're like, you know what? I survived one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. It's like a dark night of the soul. You have to crawl through all this heartache. So now when they've come and had a few years of doing that inner work of healing the heart and the emotions, now they're looking at the landscape ahead of them. And right now it's such a perfect time, because at this recording, this is like January 2023. So it's like a perfect time to look up behind. What did we learn? And look ahead. What are we going to take those learnings and do with it and implement into this new year? And so when these women come to me during these transitional periods, they're looking ahead into their lives and saying, what can I learn? What skill sets can I have so I can create a new legacy for my children? What can I do to improve and transform? What chains can I break mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and skill set wise, financially, so that future generations do not have to repeat this? And so the ashes you're coming to me with is, I don't know how to do it. I don't even know what questions to ask. All I know is I don't want my money to disappear. They've gotten their settlement money, and they can come in large chunks, or they're finally coming into earning more money because now they've settled into this new lifestyle. So now money isn't the challenge. Now it's how do I make sure it multiplies in a safe and vehicle How do I make sure it doesn't disappear with inflation? Because we all know what's happening today in the supermarkets and in the gas stations. And so sitting in the bank, they know that the money is just like withering away. It's the purchasing power is not keeping up. So they're coming to me wondering, I don't know who to trust. I don't know where to go. I don't even know the first thing of what to ask. And I don't have time to stop and research because I got to keep on generating income to provide abundantly for my children. So that's the ask they're coming with. Oh, and another thing is they also understand that they broke this pattern of gender roles. So a lot of women give up their careers for 10 years to raise a family. And now they're entering the workforce and they're like, I'm hustling and I'm generating income. And they're learning all these new, even statistically, when you research it, women, there's a huge gender gap in financial intelligence between men and women. And women don't feel confident about their abilities to manage and invest. And that's why you and I are so passionate about filling that gap. I know I am because I walked through that. I was a product of that and I overcame it as you did. And so we're here to just tell women, you know what? Don't worry about it. If we filled that gap in our lives, that's why we're on a mission to help other women do that. Mm-hmm. You can do it too.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing what in my story, like I needed that help, but that help costs money, to go and get. And now I just had to work my way through that. But it is amazing the difference that it makes when you have somebody walking alongside of you to get through that and cheering you on and telling you, I've been here before, keep going, you're going to get there, don't give up. And so how much more powerful it is to have that thinking partner with you. So what does it look like when you work with a client? Are you meeting with them face to face? Are you on Zoom? Do you do workshops? Just kind of tell us what your process is.
Totally. I mean, there's several ways to get involved with me, but there's group Zoom mentorship with me so that you have a community of other women going through the same thing, that you have this camaraderie and community. There's so much strength and power in unity. And so or if you prefer one-on-one VIP type of mentorship, I got that. I got you too. And then if you just want to be a client, my whole thing is there's two main categories. One, education, and two, just client base. You are too busy. You trust the situation, trust the process, and you just want us to handle it. And you get minimal education as we go through the process as a client. But I really recommend educating yourself and going through a mentorship program first. And then you can have both, because that way you can teach it forward to the people in your lives. And that's how you truly create transformational change through the generations. And you want to learn, where are you now? You want to be able to understand through a mentor who can cast the vision of what is the terrain that we are looking at on earth when it comes to money and finance. What is the terrain? What do I mean when I say that? Well, where are the pitfalls? What are the enemies of money? And what are the goals? What are healthy goals? And what are the vehicles that can get you there? There's so many vehicles out there and there's so many different outcomes. You can have great gains, great losses. Like, how do you know? We don't learn this in school unless you're a finance major. And so the experience with me is all about holding your hand, showing you the terrain, explaining what these things are, what your options are out there in the world. Then you can make informed decisions. Oh yeah, that suits my needs because of my age and my situation. Not everybody has kids that's listening. Not everyone's going to be, in their 40s. So based on your situation, you're going to need different things. And so first you got to know where you are, what the terrain is. Then we figure out, where do you want to go? This is like any kind of coaching. Where do you want to go? And then let's create a strategy and help you get there. But it's also mindset. You've got to clean up your mindset. You've got to understand the spiritual tools that you can leverage, that you must leverage, because we are more spiritual than we are physical. And then because we live on earth and the currency is money, so we got to learn that it's okay to deal with money, think about money, talk about money, learn about money, and teach it forward.
Yeah. It's not one of those topics that everybody avoids or doesn't want to talk about or is embarrassed to share about. It's one of those big topics. And I'm finding when I'm working with some of my clients, they don't even know how to answer the questions of what do I want or where, if money was no object, like what does your dream life look like? Because they've not been in those situations or encouraged to dream. And so sometimes it's even starting from that point, like what is the dream that you have for yourself and for your kids and the kind of life the legacy that you want to leave behind. And so walking them through that it's fun to walk through those conversations with them and seeing the light bulbs go off and seeing them get excited. That energy is fun to bring into somebody's life.
I couldn't agree more. That's why I'm so happy to transition out of the trauma zone and be in this creation dreaming zone, and then empowering them to do that. What I see is women standing taller. They sound different in their voice. They walk different. I know you know what I'm talking about. And it's just total empowerment. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really does take a holistic, like you've mentioned earlier, a holistic approach, because getting out of that trauma mindset and sometimes holding on a little bit too tightly to that victim mentality and getting out of that mindset takes a lot of work. So when you do, like, this is just like the cherry on top, right? Is getting to do these fun things and kind of play with money and watching it grow and all these kind of exciting things. So that's a little bit probably of some of the beauty that you're seeing that's coming from working with clients. But tell us a little bit more about, you've told us about the ashes that they're coming to, but tell us about the beauty that they're leaving with when they're done working with you.
And by the way, I just love the title of your podcast. And I love that just feeds into the story that you're pulling out of your guests, because that really serves your audience. And I just love it so much. And the beauty that I see when they transform themselves, because they're the ones doing the work, right? We can bring them to the water, bring them the information and encourage, but they're the ones doing the hard work. And like I said, it's just the self-belief, the self-esteem, the self-confidence of knowing they've got themselves set up financially, and they feel solid ground underneath them, and they're not depending on anyone else. It doesn't mean that, they don't want to get into a marriage or a relationship again. That's not true. They do. It's that now they're holistically whole and they've got their money set up correctly. So now the victimhood is completely healed holistically, so that they're attracting and meeting it and wanting to meet only people who reflect that back. And so their relationships are going to be elevated for that reason. That's one about relationships. Two is just the responsibility, taking that full responsibility of where they came from and how they made those mistakes and how they got into that situation, so that they can reroute and heal. Again, of course, in the present day, you see it in the bank account, you see it in their lifestyle, you see it in their retirement. They're not worried. They can sleep at night. They're peaceful and tranquil. And then it makes them a better parent if they have children, because now they're not so stressed out and constricted. Now they're open and more creative and more able. Like, it just helps everything, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And that energy just seeps into, just spreads into everything. And lastly, most importantly, is because we change, our children automatically absorb that, embody it, and they change. And it's just going to keep on going. I help people create generational wealth. However, we cannot, the first generation, when wealthy people pass on generation, that first generation that receives it, if they're not taught the mindset, the spiritual practices, and all the things, it's just going to disappear. So we have to pass down the lineage of not just the physical wealth, but also the mindset and the skill set.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely love that. It's just beautiful. When you're working with your divorcees, I know that they're coming to a different place, but I'm just thinking overall, like, what are your ideas and thoughts about how we can bring dignity to divorcees, and trust their story, especially if they're coming from a trauma situation? Because a lot of times I realize that there can be some lack of trust with people's stories around trauma. So, what are your thoughts and ideas on how we can embrace them and respect their story and hold dignity to them?
Wow. Well, I'm going to flip it on the other side. The divorcee, it would behoove her to be discerning about who she's going to. And if you need to go and hire someone who's specialized in this area to hold space for you and listen without judgment, shaming, blaming, or anything, and only wants the best for you, which is your healing and transformation, do that. If you can't afford it, go to a domestic violence center if it's a situation that qualifies. If not, go to Meetup, go on YouTube. Like, there are so many resources today. We're so fortunate. However, if you do have people in your life, be discerning. You've got to be careful who you go to, because if someone is speaking negativity over your life, shut that door and move on. If the person is making, holding the space for you and you feel good and seen and affirmed, great, stay there. And you only really need one person to see you. And your question was, how can we hold the space for them? Empathy, right? We don't need to, it's not up to us to believe them or not. It's our job to love on them. How do we do that? Well, just don't take it on as yours. Don't take ownership of their trauma. Put them in the bubble, put yourself in the bubble, and imagine what God would do. Just listen and just love. You don't even have to say a word, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. Like, just love them like you have always loved them. Nothing needs to change because their marital status has changed. We continue to love them as our friend or our family member, and just try to remain steady for them, because that's what they need, is something stable, and to know that they are still worthy of love, because they are. And that just because what the circumstances are or what's happened in their life doesn't change who they are. So I totally agree with you on that one, that love is the answer. Sounds cliche, but I do. I believe that, loving them. And I always encourage people, you don't need to know the answers. You probably don't have all the answers. And even if you've gone through a divorce before, each divorce is like a fingerprint, right? It's different and it's unique. And the way that you went through your divorce probably wouldn't fit the way that I went through my divorce as the best answer for me. So seeking out professional help is always the best option. And then your family and friends can remain family and friends, and they don't have to take on that heaviness of that situation. They can just love on you.
I love that so much. So good.
So why don't you tell our listeners how they can find you and a little bit about the events that you've got coming up?
Totally. You can go to my website, and I've got a free checklist. It's called the 9 Keys to Financial Freedom for Women. And these are the 9 things that I wish I had learned in high school, in university. I went to a really expensive university in New York City. I never learned any of this. And so, you can just go to marylhuang.com. It's MaryLhuang.com. Scroll to the bottom, enter your info, and it'll come right into your inbox. And just look at on the checklist. If you have any questions about it, just email me, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I think that's a really great start for people. Another way is, if you want to stay up to date on my events, I do a lot of speaking live in person or on podcasts and summits. So if you want to know, like, up to date, it's on my Linktree. So Linktree /Mary Huang. And that's the best way to see some of the other resources that I have, the books I've written and stuff like that. What else? Yeah, if you want to see me on Instagram and follow me there, I'd love to connect with you. And that my handle is _Mary_Huang.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I love the energy that you bring, and I love that you're setting out to change legacies financially, but also like with the holistic approach. And it's simply beautiful. And so thank you for giving back to the world in in your service and from your own Ashes story.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I got to say, I appreciate you so much for having this platform to serve people and women. I wish I had known about you when I was going through my dark night of the soul, because this is so encouraging. When people know that others have gone through it, they can too. And so I really appreciate you. And thank you for this platform.
Yes, thank you. And yes, listeners, that's what we want you to know, is that you are not alone. Reach out, swallow that pride and ask for help and take help, because it will definitely lessen the burden and it will help your healing go much smoother and probably quicker. So definitely reach out for help. With that, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, radiate love. For more information on services or divorce resources provided by The Divorce Life, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, or find us at www.thedivorcelife.com. Thank you for tuning in and listening, and a big thanks to my producer, Jazz, at the Possibilities Podcast Center.